Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're dimming the lights and tuning into a story that has haunted the airwaves for over 4 decades. It's a tale that blends the ordinary with the inexplicable, a ghost in the machine that still sends shivers down the spines of those who know it. Our story begins on a chilly Halloween night in 1979, a time of disco, classic rock, and the golden age of radio. Imagine a small local radio station, the kind that was the heartbeat of its community. The DJ for the late-night shift was probably named something like Rockin' Rick or Midnight Mike. The studio would be a cozy, cluttered space, walls lined with egg carton soundproofing and shelves overflowing with vinyl records. The air would smell of old paper, warm electronics, and stale coffee. Outside, the world was getting ready for Halloween. Kids were sorting their candy hauls and spooky movies were playing on television. Inside the booth, it was just another night on the job. The playlist for that evening was a standard mix of popular hits. The DJ would spin a record, cue up the next one, and maybe read a few local announcements. It was a familiar, comforting routine. But on this particular Halloween, something broke through the familiar rhythm of the night. During a live music segment, as a popular song played out to the listeners tuned in across the town and the surrounding countryside, another sound bled through the broadcast. It wasn't static. It wasn't feedback from a microphone. It was the unmistakable, terrifying sound of screaming. At first, listeners might have thought it was a prank. It was Halloween, after all. A bit of spooky audio theater wasn't out of the ordinary. Stations across the country were playing War of the Worlds, or airing horror-themed specials. But this felt different. The screams weren't theatrical. They were raw, filled with genuine panic and terror. They were the kind of sounds that make the hair on your arms stand up. They cut through the music, sharp and desperate, before vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. The song continued playing as if nothing had happened, leaving listeners in a state of confused silence. The station's phone lines immediately lit up. Confused and concerned listeners called in, asking what had just happened. Was it a joke? Was someone hurt? In the studio, the scene was one of utter confusion. The on-air DJ was just as baffled as his audience. He hadn't heard anything unusual through his studio monitors. To him, the song had played perfectly. He assured the callers it must have been some kind of signal interference, a crossed wire from another broadcast, perhaps. But the station's chief engineer was called in to investigate, because the sheer number of calls suggested this was more than a simple technical glitch. The engineer was a practical man, someone who understood the logic of wires, transmitters, and frequencies. He began a methodical check of all the equipment. He examined the turntable, the mixing board, the broadcast transmitter, and every inch of cable connecting them. He found nothing. No faulty wiring, no open microphones, no crossed signals. According to every piece of equipment, the broadcast had been clean. The song had gone out, and that was it. The screams, it seemed, had come from nowhere. He confirmed the studio and the entire station building had been empty, aside from the lone DJ in the booth. There was no physical source for the sound. The engineer was stumped, but his investigation didn't stop there. He went back to the master recording of the broadcast, the tape that captured everything that went out over the airwaves. He rewound it to the moment of the incident, pressed play, and listened intently. And there they were, faint but undeniably present on the tape. The same desperate screams the listeners had reported. They were woven into the magnetic fabric of the tape, a ghost captured in the machine. It was impossible. The equipment showed no input, yet the output contained a voice that hadn't been in the studio. This is where the story takes a much darker turn. Word of the phantom broadcast spread through the small community. A local police officer, hearing the story, felt a chilling sense of recognition. A few weeks prior, a teenage girl from a neighboring town had gone missing. Her case had grown cold, with no leads and no witnesses. The officer had been one of the last people to hear her voice, a recording from a frantic, disconnected 911 call she had made. He asked the radio station for a copy of their broadcast tape. He needed to compare the sounds. The engineer isolated the audio of the screams from the music. The officer listened, his expression growing more grim with every second. He then played the recording from the girl's 911 call. The comparison was terrifying. The pitch, the cadence, the sheer terror in the voice, they were a match. The screams that had mysteriously appeared on the radio broadcast belonged to the missing girl. It was her voice, crying out from the ether, broadcast to an entire town on Halloween night. The revelation sent a shockwave through the community. What was once a spooky radio mystery had become a potential clue in a tragic disappearance. How was this possible? How could a young woman's voice from a separate time and place manifest itself on a live radio broadcast? The rational explanations began to fall away, replaced by unsettling questions. Was it a supernatural plea for help? A psychic echo of a terrible event imprinted on the airwaves? Or was there a more complex but still unexplained scientific phenomenon at play, like an atmospheric condition that somehow trapped and rebroadcast an old signal? Investigators revisited the girl's case with renewed urgency, but the phantom broadcast provided no concrete clues to her whereabouts. It was a voice without a location, a cry without a context. The mystery of her disappearance remained unsolved. The radio station became a local legend, a place touched by something inexplicable. The staff who worked there that night would never forget it. The story was passed down from one generation of DJs to the next, a cautionary tale about the strange things that can happen when the veil between worlds seems thinnest, especially on a night like Halloween. Over the years, the story has been embellished, as all good ghost stories are. Some versions claim the screams reappear on that station every Halloween. Others say the DJ quit his job the very next day, too spooked to ever sit alone in a radio booth at night again. But the core of the story, the documented event of unexplained screams matching the voice of a missing person, remains a chilling and verified piece of local lore. It's a haunting reminder that sometimes technology can capture more than we intend, picking up on echoes of tragedy that linger in the world around us. It makes you wonder what other secrets are floating on the silent frequencies, just waiting for the right conditions to be heard. Thank you for joining me for this dive into the unknown. If you have any similar stories or theories, I'd love to read them in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more explorations of strange and mysterious events. Stay safe, stay curious, and until next time, keep listening to the static. You never know what you might hear.